Hi, it's Amanda Lee from Sugar Cake School, and in this tutorial I'll be showing you how to utilize the Prop Options central bars to create this opulent wedding cake design. We're going to be using the central bars to create this sugar flower halo on two of these different tiers, and then we're also going to be using the fluted tier to create that break in texture and as a feature in the center of this cake. So I'll show you how to bring this whole thing together. And so whether you are using sugar flowers or wafer paper flowers or applying different patterns and a different style to your cake design, you'll be able to utilize all the techniques in this tutorial to create your own unique and opulent cake design. Let's dive on in. And so we are going to be decorating various tiers of our cake using silicone molds. And so these are all different shapes and different patterns. I like to find molds that are quite versatile, that can be used as a trim, or that can be cut up into individual pieces to be embellishments. And so you can see here I've got various molds, but most of them have a pattern of motifs and lines and shapes that would match the Renaissance type era, something that's very classical, very regal. And so I've selected all of the molds that match that theme, and I'm just going to be mixing and matching different shapes and utilizing in different ways. Again, I'm going to be making them and possibly reshaping them to fit the pattern that I want to create. So when you are purchasing or finding molds, add those to your set that can be multi-purpose, can be used for a wide range of designs. And so that's all that I'll be using today. And so let's start creating some molded shapes out of fondant to apply onto our cakes. So let's go ahead and make our molded shapes. So I've got a duster here with some corn flour. You can have icing sugar in it as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and start making some of these shapes. So I'm just going to dust some of this corn flour. I'm going to take out a little piece of my fondant, and you want to give it a knead so that you have a smooth surface. You do not want a firm or a crusty piece of fondant that's got lines in it. So once I've got that nice ball, I'm just going to press it into the mold. And you can just use your fingers to press it like so. You can use a rolling pin if you want to kind of roll it in there, but I prefer to just do it like this. And then you want to you can use a knife. I like to use the back of a paring knife, and I just like to scrape away all of this excess, pressing firmly onto the sides of the silicone mold. You want to try and have the blade parallel to the mold itself. The reason why I don't use the sharp side is that you can accidentally cut into the silicone mold itself and damage your mold. So that's why I like to use the back of a paring knife. And then it's simply a case of just pressing your piece out. And so you can go ahead and make as many of these in advance and find shapes that work with your motif. So I'm just going to be making a lot of the shapes found in this mold and some flowers as well. So now we're going to apply the pieces from fondant that we have made using our molds. And I have stuck the top and the second tier, these two tiers together, because I would like to create a motif that joins these two tiers together. So that's why I pre-stacked and attached these two tiers first. And so every time you are attaching your pieces, before you stick them on, it's a really good idea to just hold them up and to make sure that you're happy with the positioning of everything. And once you're happy with the positioning of everything, then you can start applying some water and attaching your pieces. You can attach water or sugar glue to the pieces itself. I like to apply them onto the cake. You can press down firmly when you're happy with the positioning. I'm going to be creating an oval-like border. I'm going to have some flower motifs in the middle. So it's going to be a very symmetrical design. So now that I've finished the border, I'm going to be putting some flower molded patterns towards the center. And so I'm just using a lace mold to do that. I'm not using the whole piece. I'm just cutting out portions from the molded pieces that I like to use. So let's talk a little bit about how we would be attaching our tiers for delivery. Now, because we are using the center bar divider, this does not allow us to have a central dowel going all the way through our entire cake. This is a very large cake. And so because there is no central dowel, I would be setting this cake up in a way that comes in different blocks. I'm going to be stacking them and attaching them in 3 different parts. And so I would be doing this bottom portion. So I'd have the bottom tier, second bottom tier, and this central bar here. I would attach this as part 1, and then I'll be attaching all of this next section together. As you can see, I'm stopping where the center bar divider is because I find that this is just going to be the most secure way to deliver my cakes. And so we have this middle tier section here, and I'm trying to attach as many pieces as I can together, but doing so in a way that is going to give me complete peace of mind whilst delivering this cake. And then we have this top section here. These 2 tiers are going to be stuck to each other. So I'm going to attach all of these just like this, and this is how the cake is going to be delivered. And on the day we are at the venue going to be putting this middle section on top, attaching it at the venue, and then that final piece on top. And I'll demo all of this in this video. So I'm just using some melted white chocolate to do this. You can use royal icing as well. Some people like to use ganache, but I find melted chocolate is stronger than ganache. You want to move quickly so that this doesn't set. Obviously you want to make sure that this is completely centered. And then you can put a weight on top, just something heavy just to press this down. Just double check that everything is centered before the chocolate completely sets. You have a little bit of time to move this around. And then a little bit more melted chocolate. We're going to attach our central bar. When you are happy with the placement of that, give it a good press. And then another weight on top. And that section is ready to go. And do the same with attaching all of the other tier sections. Now this central bar here, I'm just going to take one extra step and paint it with a layer of edible white paint. Now it is a lovely silver color. It does not look, it's not going to change the effect of my design at all. However, because my design is not going to directly cover this center bar and parts of this will be visible, I'm just taking an extra step just to make this silver central bar be more cohesive with my overall cake design. And I prefer for it to be more on the whitish color. If the central bar was gold, the one that I obtained was gold, and this particular cake design is going to be gold in its metallics, then I probably would skip this step. The other option you can take is to cover this with a very, very thin layer of fondant. And so you could just roll out a really thin piece of fondant and just using some water or shortening or edible glue, wrap this bottom layer and this central bar with fondant. Again, that is not completely necessary, but I'm just someone who likes to take the extra step, and I think it will make this whole illusion of this floating effect be more effective. The great thing about doing this is that it's not permanent, so you can just clean this edible paint off the next time you want to utilize your central bar for another cake design. So now we're going to make and attach together our sugar decorations to form these stems. So I'm going to show you how to put this together, assuming that you already have knowledge to make any kind of flower or leaf decorations. And so any sugar flower or sugar leaf or wafer paper flower or wafer paper leaf can be substituted into this design. It just has to be on a wire so that we can put them together. And so we are not going into the actual making of each individual flower. Otherwise, this will be a multi-part series. In this tutorial, it's really pulling it all together to show you how I create this effect. But virtually any sugar flower or wafer paper flower or leaf on a wire can be put together to make this decoration. So I'll show you how to put it together onto the stem and then apply it onto your cake. I have cut down my wire. This is a 20 gauge wire. I've cut it down to about 24 centimeters. This is just a better length to attach onto our cake. You'll see why later on. And this needs to be a firmer wire to hold all of the smaller flowers and leaves and berries together, which have been made onto thinner wires. And so you want to start about 2 inches below this wire. Now you're going to need this portion here, and this is going to attach to the upper tier, and this portion is going to attach to the lower tier. And so we've got some flower tape here, and just want to stretch it just to release the glue. And then it's just a case of selecting whatever flower decorations you've made and start wrapping it around that main 20 gauge wire. And so after 2 to 3 wraps, you can go in with another flower or a berry. So I'm going to do another flower. And keep wrapping this. And it's just alternating between what you've made and prepared in advance. So I've got my berries and I've got my little roses, and I've made a few rose buds as well. So you can just keep alternating with the decorations that you have prepared. You can arrange the placement and the positioning of each flower later after you finish doing your wrapping. I'm just bending them just to sort of get them out of the way of my wrapping. And as you travel downwards, you'll see the decorations start to fill up your wire. Now you can keep wrapping all the way down, or you can just trim off some of this excess wires that you don't need. Obviously want to leave that main long stem down there. And you want to prepare a few of these ready to go to attach onto your cake. How many you need will depend on how dense you want the design to look and also how large your cake tiers are. I'm going to go ahead and keep making this, and then we're going to attach them onto our cake. So now all of our beautiful stems have been assembled. We are going to attach them onto our cake. I have marked out beforehand where I want the placement of all of these, and this will depend on how dense you want the design. Basically, I'm going one on each end and then in the middle of this tier here. And so I'm just going to go on right ahead and start inserting this into my cake. And we are going to reposition all of these individual flowers later on. You don't have to worry about that right now. And then to attach this to the underside of our central bar floater, we are just going to use regular tape. No cake is going on the underside of this, so this is completely fine and is really the quickest method for attaching this securely. Make sure you press it on nicely, and that's pretty much done. Like I said, we can reposition all of these individual flowers and leaves later on to get the most beautiful positioning. But for now, we just want to attach all of these stems that we have made. Give it a slight bend. We want that arcing pattern happening for all of that arcing shape for all of these stems. Now, if some of the stem ends are a little bit long, just trim it. You don't want there to be lots of wires and things visible. So we want to get that cleaner finish. And so one more thing we have to do is to reposition some of these flowers. And so we don't want everything to be forward facing. We want it to look as natural as possible. However, if you see some of the leaves or some of the flowers not in a very good angle, maybe it looks a little bit awkward, then you can just bend them. It's all very thin wires, and so it's very easy to bend. We just want it to look very natural and for everything to be well placed. And obviously you want to show off the best parts of the flower. And so once you finish that, this whole bottom section is done. Now, whether you choose to keep placing flower stems all the way to the back, that is completely up to you. It depends on your client's budget, how much flowers they actually want around the cake. And so you can keep going all the way to the back for continuation. However, I'm pretty happy with the design as is. It's covered all of the front, in fact, and most of the sides, and it's going to look really, really good this way. So this is where I'm leaving it for this section. We're going to go ahead and attach flowers on the next portion of our cake. So now we are going to decorate the upper portion of our cake. We've got our central bar here, and this one's a little bit more complicated because we've got the central bar sitting on top of this beautiful fluted faux tier. This is from Prop Options and it's so beautiful, and we have incorporated this into this design. And so because of that, there is actually nothing to penetrate the end of the wire into. And so to do this, we have to utilize a little bit of sugar glue and a little bit of gum paste. And so I'm just using a teeny tiny portion of gum paste, rolling them into balls here. Always got to keep that covered so that it doesn't dry out. And so we have our stem here, and we just want to trim this down so that only a tiny portion of wire is going to sit at the bottom. Now in this instance, we are actually going to adhere the top with tape first, because that is less fiddly. The bottom portion is where it is a little bit more fiddly. And so give your stem a bend just to create that curve that we want. And then bend the bottom portion as well. Now this doesn't need to be as long, and so we're going to give that a trim. And so I've already marked out where I would like my stems to go. So it's always good to pre-plan this beforehand. So I'm happy with this positioning. So just using some tape, I'm going to stick the top portion of the wire to the top plate of the central bar. And this is the underside, of course. The other cakes are going to sit on top here. So once that's secure, we can then add a little bit of glue to the base right here. So I'm just dabbing on a tiny amount of sugar glue or edible glue. We've got our sticky ball of gum paste here. And I'm just going to press that over the bottom part of the wire. I'm going to press that down and just pull off or peel off any excess. Flatten it so that it's more discreet. And with the overall design, that is not going to be noticeable. And that's just a very straightforward way to attach the bottom of our wires to these plates that we can't penetrate. And then go ahead and put all of the stems that you've prepared onto this portion of the cake. And then as per the other portion as well, we just want to rearrange these individual leaves, berries and flowers so that the best sides are visible. So now that we have attached all of our flower decorations, it is at this stage that we would deliver our cakes, and I would do it in these 3 different segments. And so now we're going to pretend that we're at the venue and we are going to put our entire cake centerpiece together. We're going to stack these 3 parts and I'm going to attach them with melted chocolate. Now you can use melted chocolate or you can also use royal icing, depending on what you prefer and what the facilities at the venue that you're delivering to can offer you. So if there is a microwave that you can access, then you can use melted white chocolate. Otherwise, royal icing will be a fantastic option as well. So I'm going to go ahead and start applying my melted chocolate and then stacking each portion on top of the other. So thank you for joining me in this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you'd like to learn more from me, you can look me up on Instagram at Sugar Cake School, or here on YouTube, you can find me by looking up Sugar Cakes. It's been an absolute pleasure showing you how to utilize the incredible central bars and the fluted tier from Prop Options. Till next time.